entrepreneur, early unicorn investor, author, brand builder, tennis lover, Puerto Rico resident.
Hi, I'm Lauren Maillian, and welcome to Power Up Talks.
Lauren, I'm so happy to interview you.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Since the first time someone meets you, or happened to me, your energy, your drive, your ambition, yet your kindness, and you're trying to help others, and your raw everything, it's just magnetic. Do you know that?
I'm learning. I'm learning over time. This is me. Oh my goodness gracious. This is me. You know, I use my hands. I'll do a fresh take.
Puerto Rican hand user.
Yeah, I love to talk with my
honorary.
hands. You know, but it is who I am, Lucienne. It has been me my entire life. I see a problem, I want to solve it, whether that's in a business, in a process, in a system, in a person. If there's something that I see in them that they don't see in themselves, so much of that is my life and my career, and other people looking at me and giving me an opportunity, or me having a curiosity, and someone saying, I'm going to give you this responsibility, Lauren. And when I see that opportunity in someone else, it is natural for me to want to see them flourish in the way that I think it's possible. And so that is just the innate part of me. I had a really dear friend come visit last weekend, and she wrote to me last night a very long text, one of those iMessages where you has the arrow and you have to continue reading, and it is like a whole page. And she says to me, Lauren, you are an optimizer. And I don't know if you know it.
Optimizer.
Yeah. She said, it's been sticking with me since last night, which is when she wrote it to me. And she says, you're an optimizer. And I don't know if you know this, but you optimize everything. And I've watched you do it throughout our 17 years of friendship. You've optimized every situation that you get. You turn better, you know, moving your family to Puerto Rico. She named all of these things that I've done. And I accept it. I'm an optimizer, but I also really love the opportunity to help other people optimize as well.
That's a perfect word to describe you. And but first things first, for all of us who follow you, we see your love for Puerto Rico. We see those posts, and it makes me so happy, the love that you show. Tell us your Puerto Rico story.
My Puerto Rico story starts when I was really young, actually. My Puerto Rico story starts when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I would come to the island. My dad was doing work here, and we would stay at the El San Juan Hotel, my mom and I. And there was a particular floor that they would put us on. I think it was like the executive floor or what have you. And it would have like free hors d'oeuvres every afternoon. And so I would go, and being the optimizing Lauren that I was, even at 5, I was like, free food, you know, like free food and free soft drinks. Okay, I'm there at 5 o'clock every day. We have to be in this executive floor. And there was a show that used to play called Cristina Cristina. And I know that she is Venezuelan. I know she's not a Puerto Rican, but this show I was watching, and I found it very amusing and interesting, and with the subtitles. And that was like my first experience of Puerto Rico and really Latin culture from early on. And we kept coming to Puerto Rico when I was a little girl. And then fast forward to me being a young adult, when I had opportunities for just a weekend free. San Juan was the super easy place to come. And like back, you know, early 2003, 4, 5, the Water Club was like super cool.
God, the Water Club,
and
I know.
I would pop over here for like 2 nights, 3 nights, whatever I could get, because the Water Club was close to the airport. It was an easy flight. So Puerto Rico has always, and San Juan in particular, has always been a part of, you know, me, who I am, the fun I've had, where I feel safe, where I feel comfortable, where I feel like a second home. And then fast forward again to me being married and divorced and a single mom from a very young age. I was 24 years old with 2 children under 2, going through a divorce. And Puerto Rico was another place that, you know, we felt really awesome coming to. And so I would come with my mom and my kids. I would come alone with my kids. And we were always going to the St. Regis, Bahia Beach. And it had just opened at that time, early 2000s as well. My divorce started 2009. And I think the hotel opened 2009, I believe. And I was always bringing my kids, and they were just lovely to me. And it was the only place that everyone basically felt like I could come with my kids as a single mom without somebody else,
So
right?
you moved as a single mom here.
No. This is still the history of Puerto
Oh,
Rico
my
in my
God.
life.
Uh-huh.
So when I was single mom back in the day, so go back to like 2009, this is like, now 16 years ago. And I would always bring my kids here because it felt safe. It was easy. It was awesome. Everyone was happy to see us, to help me hold my baby on the beach, to wash the baby bottles, whatever I needed. They were always there. Then fast forward, we as a family came. I remarried in 2020 to a guy I've been with, an amazing guy, Robert, who I've been with now for almost 10 years, nine years. And we came on a vacation here, December 2020. And it was the last minute that we said, let's go to Puerto Rico. And my daughter's passport was expired. We thought we were going to go to the DR. And it was like, whoops, my bad. I'm the mom. And your passport was not up to date. We're going to Puerto Rico. And I can't continue to tell you, it was just, it was divine intervention. We were meant to be here. We were meant to stay here. We came back December 26th of 2020, day after Christmas, because that was the best deal on the flight.
Of course.
And we arrived and we went back to the St. Regis and we stayed there for quite some time. And then we started exploring the island. And next thing you knew, I was looking at schools. And next thing you knew, I bought a house. And we're still here. And this is home. This is home. This is primary residence. My son has graduated high school now from here and gone off to college. My daughter's graduating next year from here. And it has been the most beautiful silver lining of my adulthood, my life. It has been the most, I owe Puerto Rico so much, to be honest with you, because I was speaking to a friend just this week who lived here before us in Condado, a guy friend of mine. And he's about 10 years older than me. And he goes, Lauren, I was here 6 months before you. I've lived here 6 months longer. I still don't own a house. I still don't have any kids. Wow. And he's like, you came here and you made it your home. And it was because it felt so right. And I remember I kept saying to my husband and to the kids, like, if we don't find a house to buy or a house to rent long term, then I guess we go back, or if you don't get into the school, well, I guess we go back. And everything just kept happening as it should have for us. And so the opportunity to be here, the opportunity to soak up the culture of Puerto Rico has been so special for us, especially for me. I mean, we're talking about powering up, and
yes.
I've kind of been powering up my whole life, and I've enjoyed that. It's been a great responsibility, but also a really great honor and a joy. I love to work, but admittedly, I was working probably too much. And I remember when I came here, I was leading an organization as CEO where I had been chair of the board of directors, a nonprofit organization focused on Black and Latina women as innovators and entrepreneurs. And I was introduced to a lot of people here on the island about our work and women that I wanted to meet and wanted to collaborate with. And one said, oh, okay, well, we can meet in 3 weeks. And I was like, okay, fine, and so we put a meeting on the calendar. And then 4 days later, they message me and they say, hey, are you available to go dancing? And I said, oh, I thought you were busy. And they said, no, I'm busy for our meeting. Like, we'll have our meeting in 3 weeks, but I'm available to meet up for salsa if you want to come and hang out. And I was like, wow, this is my kind of place,
I'll stay in Puerto Rico.
This is my kind of place. But it put back into perspective what is important. And it is important that we have our time to power up in a certain container in our life, and that we have our time to also enjoy the fruits of our labor from all of the powering up that we get to do. And so Puerto Rico has reminded me of that in just the right moment. And arguably, it's made me the best mom I could ever be for my children in their high school years, to be here and to be here for all of the major moments. And I always appreciated dinner at the table, but dinner at the table looks a lot different in Puerto Rico than it looked in New York when I would eat dinner at the table with them and then go have a dinner outside, and have something else to do. So this has been a wake-up call. It has been a home that feels like home, and it has been a really incredible welcoming. I mean, we moved, and a couple of months later, they're asking me to be on the cover of Dorado magazine. And I'm like, oh my God,
but
me?
Of course.
Me? It's so funny, but it has been just right on time in our life.
Everything that you say, the word that keeps popping in my mind is courage, right? A courage to move, courage to start over, which we'll talk about soon, courage to be 24-year-old, divorced, figure it out in I've got this mindset. Tell me about what you learned in your divorce. I know that there are 13 books, but one thing that is a stepping stone or was a stepping stone to yourself now.
Oh, there's so many things. It's like, which one do I want to share?
Pick one.
I will say that we can call it courage. I can also tell you that when you have no option, like courage is the only way to go. There's just no, so many people ask me, well, how and why and how could you do all these things? I had children to feed. Like it was very simple. It was not glamorous. It was not cool. I have kids to feed and I have bills to pay. It was just that simple. And I really did not want to interrupt their life in any way. And so that's also been, a blessing and a curse that my kids don't know how hard it was at one point in time.
Yes.
But that's also the way I wanted it for them. And so what is the one major lesson that I learned in my divorce is that when you have the right support, you can be the most phenomenal superwoman. And that means that you can make your own money, you can buy your own home, you can chart your own path, you can make your own rules, you can obtain wealth and success and career and everything that you want on your own terms when you have the right ecosystem around you, when you have the right mindset. And, a lot of folks might think, this idea of manifestation is, I don't know. I do believe in manifestation to a certain extent. I also believe in strategy, right? Okay. I believe in having a certain amount of willpower more so than courage, You have to have willpower to do it every single day.
How do you define willpower?
I define willpower as having an undeterred concentration on the improvement of your circumstance.
Okay.
And letting no one or no thing take that away from you, right? It's very easy to be discouraged. It's very easy to compare. It's very easy to loathe. It's very easy to be depressed. It's very easy to fall prey to a lot of what society is designed to pull our attention away from.
And what helps you, or what has helped you find that willpower when you have 2 kids to feed, when you really don't know exactly where that paycheck is coming from? What keeps you? What tactic can you give us that we can apply when we feel and when we're going through something like this? Is it in you and that's it? Or can you just figure it out somehow?
I do think it's in you.
Yeah.
Because you're the one that has to take the action. Yeah. Like no one can take action for you. Something I was actually talking to my mom about today. No one can take action for you. And so a lot of people say they want it. And it might be true. They want it. But they still don't take action to do it. So
there's a paralysis about when you are in those black holes in your life, or when you feel like that, that you need to just snap out of it.
I will also say that in going through some of these situations and instances, it's also really important that you don't just take action, but that you also follow up. And what I have learned, and this is also something I'll share, and this is something I think is especially true for women, and women that are wanting to power up, women that see a big, bold life for themselves, and something that I wrote in my book many years ago and still holds true today, even in the new edition of the book, is as women, I think we have to determine what we want to share about our circumstance with other people. Because unfortunately, the world will often decide for you what it thinks you should have or what it thinks you can handle. I truly believe that one of the secret sauces to my success has been and was when I was going through the most harrowing times of my life and my divorce. I didn't tell many people. If you were close to me, you knew everything that was happening. You had the play-by-play because you were in my inner circle. Yeah. If you were not in my inner circle, you did not know that Lauren was going through a divorce and that she was alone at home with 2 kids under 2 trying to figure it out, because I didn't want you to know, because I didn't want, and not because I cared if you knew my reality, I had no shame. But what I didn't want was for someone else to determine that Lauren was overwhelmed and too busy and unavailable and so busy rearing her children that maybe they weren't even going to call me or consider me for any opportunity. And so that, I think, was a lot of my secret sauce, because the calls kept coming the opportunities kept coming because people weren't trying to determine for me what I could handle. And it was up to me how much sleep I wanted to get or didn't get or what I valued and how I decided to show up. And I was showing up on my A game because I wanted everything that was in front of me. And I absolutely also wanted a different life and a different future. And then when I was ready to share, hey, by the way, guys, my life has been imploding for the last 2.5 years. They were like, wow, and you've been showing up for us. Wow, you've done all these amazing things. And then even more doors opened because those same folks, and whether that was companies or investments or board seats or speaking opportunities or advisory roles or what have you, consulting gigs, folks then said, wow, you've been handling all of this and showing up with excellence for us. A, thank you. And B, now that you have all this other mess in your life out of the way, finally.
What else are you going to do?
Yeah. Do you have more time? Do you have more capacity? And then everything just kept, that was my power up. That was like the level up for me. And so I leave that with women because I think, men will go through divorces and deaths and things, and you don't even know that it's happening until they're out for the day because they have to go to the court or a funeral, right? Women, you hear it, you know it, and that's okay. We can be emotional.
And it becomes your story.
It becomes
not
your
only
story.
one part of your story.
Right. And we might feel it for the moment, but someone else is holding on to that for a longer period of time, and they're taking us out of the game.
And they're creating a narrative for you that will eliminate opportunities so that's very powerful, Lauren. And that brings me to the stories we tell about ourselves and the stories and the life we build for ourselves. And that brings me to the path redefined. You wrote this book 11 years ago, and you're just launching a rewrite of this book now.
Yeah.
So updated research and success tips.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to rewrite this?
I'm going to keep it 100. I'm going to keep it honest. So the first iteration of the book, of The Path Redefined, came out in 2014. So like rewind for yourself and your listeners and your viewers. That was when Sophia Amoruso's Girl Boss book came out.
Great.
That's when Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In came out, and then Lean In for Graduates was coming out. My book came out at the same time, May 2014, instant bestseller. This is before we had a lot of women talking about being successful on their own terms. We certainly did not have a Black American woman talking about it. It certainly was not, the space of women's empowerment that we're in today in this day and age. And when I wrote the book, it resonated for so many. It really reverberated throughout the country in terms of women's leadership, and even in the UAE, I would go give talks, and veiled women would say, "Oh my gosh, I want to break out of my shell." I mean, it really, this idea of redefining your path, but getting to the top on your own terms, which essentially means
Exactly. What does that
defining
mean?
and attaining success for you. And for everyone else, that might be different. For some, it might be money. For some, it might be freedom. For some, it might be the ability to work from home. For some, it might be to be able to travel the world. Whatever it is for you, you get to define it and you get to own it, right? But you can redefine your path at any point in time because life is iterative. We are on a journey. And Reid Hoffman coined something that I also talk about in the book. He coined this years ago called permanent beta. And so this idea of permanent beta is that we are always starting, we are always believing, we are always renewing ourselves, our ideas, our personas, our habits. We're always, I hope, always wanting to improve in some way. And so when I wrote the book 11 years ago, I wrote it under my former married name. And there was still Maillian there, but it had an extra name on the end. And fast forward, I don't use that name, and my children don't use that name and don't want that name. And it didn't feel like me. And so I had folks that knew about the book and that were still buying the book, but I was not promoting it because it felt inauthentic to who I was. And I had a wonderful publisher, and I ended up asking them, hey, can we read through the book? And they wanted me to, instead of kind of update this one, they wanted me to rewrite a whole other one. And I was really busy, and I didn't know that I had enough to say for an entirely new book, to be honest. I was like, I kind of really believe everything I wrote. Still, I can update it. But to be honest, I've been taking my own advice. Like, how am I here at 40 years old with all the things I've accomplished? How was I moving my whole family to Puerto Rico at 35, like on a whim, and deciding to just change our life again and completely redefine my path again? Literally reading the pages of my own book. That's no BS. It's real. Like when I was stuck, I would go pick up my old copy of the book and reread my own words to myself and be like, you got to drink your own Kool-Aid, Lauren. You got to listen to your own advice, Lauren. You got to.
What chapter do you go to? What when you feel stuck and then you're like, let me get the book, and then where do you go? What is it that you would highlight?
Claim It and Shine, probably. I would probably highlight Claim It and Shine. I think I've always worked really hard. I haven't always wanted to claim it. And I haven't always
Claim it and shine.
I haven't always felt comfortable shining because a lot of the big money making moves, the investment moves that I've made I have been the only in the room, the only woman, the only Black person, the only Black woman, whatever it is you want to call it. And I've taken that with such a seriousness, and I know the seriousness with I am entrusted by people, especially in New York, on Wall Street, in Silicon Valley, in boardrooms. You know, I've made my greatest career accomplishments with people that aren't on social media, that don't care about social media, you know, who want to be private and who are wealthy, powerful, and very well educated. And for me to be able to have a seat at their table was just such an honor. And for me to be able to change my life by being able to have a seat at their table was such an honor that I kind of dare ever broadcast that to the world, right? Claro. And so this whole idea of like claim it, again, it was never from a place of insecurity. It was more a place of important discretion that had become the hallmark of my career. Hey. Like the hallmark of my career is being the problem solver, the idea generator, the revenue generator behind the scenes. Not that I'm out here sharing the work that I do for others, which is why I know a lot of people are a little confused about me. But fast forward, I don't really care if they're confused, right? Because I'm able to redefine my path again and again and again. And so when I think back to the path Redefine and what it has meant for me, and to your original question of like, why again writing the book, I had so many folks that said, Lauren, everyone wants to get to the top on their own terms, and everyone now wants to redefine their path. You coined this, and the world needs to be reminded that you're the one who said these things 11 years ago, and that you're not new to this, you're true to this, right? There's this whole idea of like, you're not new to this, you're true to this. And it's true. You know, and even then when I was 29, I wrote the book when I was 28, book came out when I was 29. And even now at 40, I'm still blowing my own mind. Like I pinch myself. You know, this last week I sat outside my house a lot. I have not been going to bed until like 4 o'clock in the morning, which is abnormal for me. But I've just been in such a place of gratitude to be able to, like, gracias a Dios, this is my life. Like to be able to sit in my backyard and hear cookies and look at the stars and have peace and tranquility and safety and security in every form is just such a blessing, and I don't take it for granted. But it is also the power of the path Redefine. It is the power of being able to be clear on what you want, intentional on what it takes to get there, and strategic and unwavering in your determination to see things through. And I said this to my mom actually, you know, today. I said, I'm not saying I'm always right, but you know, like my strategies work. They work for me. They work for so many others. They work for women. They work for companies. They work for multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporations. It worked for my son in college. It worked for, you know, it's playing out pretty well. So
what's the strategy, Lauren?
The strategy is I've always kind of made my strategies backwards, to be honest. I've always listened. You know, there's this saying, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? So I used to be the person that did not listen enough. And so in my adulthood and in my young adulthood, I decided that I was going to listen more. And that if you can listen more to why people, because the universe will tell you why you don't belong. The universe will tell you. They'll tell you why you don't belong. They'll tell you why your idea is not going to be successful. They'll tell you why you're not going to get the job. And if you actually reverse engineer all the reasons why you're told you won't, you can't, or you shouldn't, you will be able to reverse engineer all the things you have to debunk, demyth, and prove in order to succeed. And so I've spent my whole life with people telling me, oh no, I can't be an investor because I didn't work on Wall Street. I didn't go through a rotational program at an investment bank. I didn't get an Ivy League degree. I went to fashion school. Like, who went to fashion school and ends up investing in unicorn companies in Silicon Valley? Like, okay, me, but it's not normal, right? No. So if I already know then I can walk into the meeting and go, no, I didn't go to Ivy League school, but I did graduate magna cum laude at the top of my class in international trade and marketing, and I do speak 2 languages, and I do have a lot of other things to bring to the table. And at this point now, I can say, okay, sure, I still didn't work a rotational program at a bank or, grow up in the traditional sense. I've never once in my life been an employee. I've never once had a W-2 in my entire life. I've had 1099s and K-1s. I've never once had a W-2. And so even if I've done roles and been brought in to lead other people's companies, which has been a part of my career transition in the last 5 years, they're coming in as clients of my business, of the L&B group. And so, it's been interesting to be able to see that in real life. And so now fast forward, I've taken a company public, at 36 years old. I de-SPAC'd a SPAC at 38 years old, and I still don't have an Ivy League degree, but somehow I've spoken at Harvard, I've spoken at Cornell, I've spoken at Ivy League institutions, I have not graduated from one, and maybe it's something I want to do. I vacillate on if I do or don't want to go get an MBA, or do I just want to go do an INSEAD program or something else? I don't know, but that's available to me if I want to do it, right? But when you know why people think you can't, or you shouldn't, or you don't, or you won't, you can literally sit back and go, okay, so what does that mean? Do I need to beef up my resume? Do I need to add more experience? Do I need to go partner with somebody else who has the experience that they think I'm missing? You can go back and reverse engineer the plan for the launch of your own success based upon all these reasons that are right in front of you. Like, you don't need another analysis if you listen.
So your success in so many different areas that are completely unrelated. Sometimes they are related. And you have figured out how to just put yourself out there, insane confidence, re-engineering backwards, and getting it done. What would be your advice for someone who wants to do that?
My advice would be, well, I now do a lot of this work with women.
I know.
So there's an opportunity to work with me in that way. And I've created frameworks that I didn't realize were frameworks, right? So I've actually hired someone to help me distill my genius, if you will, into a framework that I can walk other people through. And I have to say, I'm really mind blown at my own curriculum that I've created. And so I'm really excited about my equity mastermind, and I have a masterclass that I do called—
And the one I did, the brand building one.
Yeah, and I have a personal branding
And you're
retreat.
doing the showing up. I've been listening about just showing up, how you show up. I think that's completely changed.
Yes, the rooms that pay masterclass as well, and rooms that pay is not just about rooms that pay in money. It's rooms that pay in dividends and happiness and value and validation and credibility and new doors and new opportunities. And it can be money too, but rooms that pay are rooms that pay you in a multitude of ways that you deserve to be valued. And that is really important to me. And I also think that you had mentioned, some of these things are disconnected. And for me, they felt very disconnected for a long time. And a couple of years ago, I had one person in particular say to me, Lauren, everything you do is self-reinforcing. And I was like, interesting. Like, tell me more. Like, what does that mean? And they said, well, everything you do makes this other thing you do even better. And I hadn't really thought about it that way. And that's when I started looking at my life and my career.
It's like compound interest.
Yeah, it's kind of like compounding interest, yes. And so it's, it might look like these things are disjointed or disconnected, but they're actually pretty connected. My ability to take a company public makes me an even better investor to find the next company that has the highest potential of being taken public, which would then increase my chances of monetization and ROI on that particular investment. Me understanding founders makes me a wonderful advisor. Me understanding the private equity landscape and buying companies in private equity transactions now helps me prepare those businesses for the right round of funding or the right funding structure in the future, which makes me an even more valuable board member. Me working with companies on a global scale makes me, someone with global access and global insights, when now global is super important, right? Yeah. Global used to be, by territory. It's like, well, we have the internet now, so everything's global. The moment it's online, it's global, right? Me being able to speak Spanish, opens another door for me. And so all of these things become really self-reinforcing. And I think when you are able to live the path redefined, and this is exactly what it is, your life feels self-reinforcing and it does not feel disjointed or disconnected. you being a powerful woman and a mother and a wife and a media exec and an entrepreneur and having marketing clients, it is not disjointed. It is all connected. It is all self-reinforcing to who you are, what you do, how you show up. I mean, your last name is Gigante, for goodness sakes. Like, you are Gigante, right?
Yes.
Like, you are,
Yeah.
that is who you are. And so I think the more we tell the world who we are and the more we show up reinforcing to the world that we are who we say we are, because a lot of people say that they're something and they show up a different way.
Yeah.
So many people say, hey, power up. And then you go meet them and you're like, you're
That's
pretty
so
meek.
true.
Like,
That's
you're
so
not powerful
true.
at all. Like, I don't want to hear anything from you about power, but like, look at you. I walk in today and I'm like, shoot, I'm not ready, right? But you are Miss Power Up and you embody that. And so, you know, you show up as who you say you are. And so if so many people say one thing, you know, especially now with ChatGPT, it's a blessing and a curse, because ChatGPT can make you sound like amazing on paper, but if you still rolling your shoulders and hunching down and not speaking up, like, I don't believe anything you have to say, right? And so how do we show up as our full selves? And the more you do it, the less you have to feel like you're performing, because it is who you are. And if it's not who you are, then you reserve the right to amend that and change that too. And that's still the path redefined. You might find that you're better behind the scenes. You know, I will say this. My husband asked me this question. My husband is an executive health and performance coach. So all things health, wellness, mind, body, spirit, performance. Like, I perform better in work because I'm healthier, I'm sharper, I sleep better, I sleep more, like all the things, right? I'm more hydrated, so I'm more alert. Like, everything correlates to how I show up in the world. And as I had a lot of these opportunities a couple of years ago, he looks at me and he speaks in sports analogies all the time.
I have that in my house.
And he said to me, Lauren, do you want to be the MVP or the sixth man? And I was like, well, damn, I don't know. I actually have to really think about that. And he's like, you're often the MVP, but you have a lot of longevity as the sixth man. And so he furthers the analogy of, you know, all these ball players, especially in basketball, who have been the sixth man, who have all the rings, and they've played and been on all the teams, and they've had at least a couple minutes in all the games, but they're not necessarily the starters, right? But they have some of them have the longest career earnings because they've got the most longevity. They have the least amount of injuries, right?
True.
And they're the constant that the team knows can always come in and always raise the tide. And so I was like, well, darn, I mean, when you put it that way, I guess I want to be the sixth man. I don't know if I want to be the MVP. And so I say all that to say that some of us think that the success is from being out front. Sometimes the success is from being behind the scenes. Sometimes, you know, in my world now, like, the unsexy money is the big money. The sexy money is not the big money, right?
Unsexy money.
The
That's a
unsexy
whole other
money
podcast.
is well, we can have that another day.
Yeah, let's do that.
But, you know, I'm at the point in my life and my career where, like, to me, success is being successful enough that maybe you're known and recognized in certain rooms, but where you're not known and recognized in the airport, you're not known and recognized, like, you can still go to the grocery store and live your life and do your thing and go out for dinner and have a good time and be who you are, and you're paid. That to me is like, that's nirvana. That's perfection.
That's
freedom. That's freedom. But for everybody else, it's different. Some people want that, right? Or some people want that until they have it and they realize they want something else.
Yeah. So, Power Up crew, look at Lauren. The force of nature, who in 1 second will teach you, inspire you, and make you believe that you actually can do it. So,
I hope I show them they can do it. Because if I just make them believe, they gotta walk the talk, okay?
So the book, the courses, follow her. And before we finish, I always end up with 3 questions, Lauren.
Okay, let's go.
What advice would you give your younger self? What do you know now that you did not know then?
The advice I would give to my younger self is, don't worry about things you can't control.
We've been talking about control a lot in the podcast, so fabulous.
I spent a lot of time worrying about things that ended up just fine. And I wish I had not spent that time, that mind space, that emotional energy worrying. I wish I had spent more time laughing and having fun and doing other things than just worrying.
What bad advice has somebody given you?
Bad advice?
That you're like, I'm not going to follow that.
Well, okay, well, I will answer this, but I have to give it some context.
Okay.
The context is that when I was going through my divorce, you have to remember, I was 24. And I've had a lot of my friends that have always been 10 to 15 years or so older than me on average, because I'm an old soul. So like when I was 24, 40-year-old girls were like, those were my girls. Those were my homegirls. And so a friend of mine that I was speaking to about my divorce and some frustration said to me, Lauren, you can talk to me about this, but I hope you're not speaking to some of your other friends about this because they cannot relate. So in no way could they ever give you the right advice. And her example was, you have real things that you've built to fight over, and anyone else that you might be speaking to who is more your peer would be fighting over like the coffee machine and like a TV, right? Like anyone else is breaking up. It's like, it's not the things that you have and that you've created. And so with that, I will say that the worst advice I was ever given was to not invest in startups because I had Pampers and formula to buy for my children. And I will tell you that with that other person's advice in the back of my head, I also stopped talking to people about the investments that I wanted to make when they were not in a position to make any kind of investment themselves. And so there are companies that I think back to now that I have their decks, I met their founders, I had the opportunity to invest in. I was scared, I was nervous, I didn't have enough money, or maybe I could have or should have divvied up the little money I had in more tranches than I did. But I had this voice in the back of my head going like, you need to buy Pampers, you need to buy formula, this is irresponsible. And so what I did do is I didn't shop. I wore Steve Madden shoes for many, many years, all the knockoffs that look like expensive shoes, whatever I needed to do to look like I was in the room, to be in the room and play the part, but to save enough money to make these startup investments at any and all cost. And if I hadn't have made any of those investments, and there's still so many that I didn't make, that honestly I would have $40 or $50 million extra, I guarantee you, because I can look back at Oculus and other businesses that I had access to, the decks, original decks in my Google Drive that I didn't, okay, that I respectfully passed on. That's whatever, can't cry over spilled milk.
Exactly.
But I had to stop also talking to people that didn't even have access to the deals I had. Forget if they had the wherewithal or the money to put in any angel check. They weren't even getting the call or the email to be invited into the round. So why would I talk to these people about what I was contemplating doing? And again, it doesn't mean that they have bad intentions, it's just not their experience. And so if it's not their experience, they can't relate in any way. And so when you are on a path or a trajectory that is so unique, that is so defined, that is a trail that has perhaps never been blazed before, or a trail that's never been blazed before from someone who looks like you have to talk to people who have blazed that trail before, because the advice that I have from other people is completely different. It's, you got to take that risk. No risk, no reward. That is very different than, hey, you need to buy formula for your children. And so I went through this time of like, well, I am buying formula for my children, but like, is it bad if I buy Love's diapers instead of Huggies? Because Love's used to always be on sale at CVS, right? So it's like whatever I had to do to save, that was the thing. And so I spent this time like worrying about the decisions I was making, the opinions of other people, if I was buying enough diapers or not. And then I started going to Costco and Target. I was like, let me just buy them in bulk and all the size 3 at one time. Like whatever I have to do to make it stretch, optimize, I suppose, in hindsight. But also, if I had not made those investments that so many people thought was silly, one of them Ruggable, machine washable rugs. I'm like the 5th investor in that company. I'm the first non-family member in that business. And I met the founder doing 4x6 rugs because, rugs smaller than this because her dog peed on her rug. And she was like, can you believe it? How do I? And it seemed crazy and wacky and what have you. And look at them now,
We can dissect that answer into a marketing, finance, investor course. So it's amazing. What great advice would you give us? Or what great advice has someone given you that you want to share?
My greatest piece of advice, and again, I wrote this in the book, so not touche, it's true. Like this is, again, drink my own Kool-Aid, is my decision calculus for every opportunity is it worth it even if I fail?
Is it worth it even if I fail?
And if the answer is yes, I do it. And so, and that means you have to sit down and be honest with yourself. Is it worth it even if you fail? Do you have enough experience? Is it worth adding to your resume? Even if it's not a success, will it still give you a skill that no one can take away from you that you wouldn't learn another way? Will it still give you exposure? Will it still give you a new network? Will it still, will it do something for your resume or for a bigger plan that you have for yourself and for your life? Because not all failure is failure if you learn, right? So is it still worth it if you fail? Then you go ahead and do it. And I take that with everything. It was the same thing with Puerto Rico. It was like, I remember I bought the house and I got, the opportunity to buy the house, and I missed other opportunities because the market was moving so fast then. Like you'd see a house and within an hour it was already gone at that time, beginning of 2021. And I remember buying the house that I live in now and going, what? Well, what if they don't get into the school? Well, I believe that this house is worth it, so I guess I'm gonna, have some equity in this house. But it was worth it even if these other things didn't work out, and they all did work out, right? So I think when we live our life with this renewed look at our decision calculus of, is it worth it even if I fail? We are taking a much more, I'll call it strategic, but I'll say like even more surgical approach, because we'll know when it is time to go. And we will know when it is the right thing to do to stay, because we would have already determined what makes it worth it for us.
Changing the framework for it, so it works for you. Lauren,
thank you so much.
I can't wait to see it, this podcast. So thank you so much. Follow Lauren, the new Path Redefined, and
get to the top on your own terms.
You are in Power Up.